2 हफ्ते पहले सिखों को एक ओपन लेटर भेजा गया था बाय फार राइट हिंदुत्व एजेंट्स वाया यूट्यूब ऑब्वियसली। एक नई स्क्रिप्ट, एक नया मोर्चा। सो लेट्स रीड दैट लेटर एंड देखिए उसमें कौन से सेंटिमेंट्स हर्ट हो गए इनके इस हफ्ते। डिड गुरु तेग बहादुर जी साहिब गेव सेक्रीफाइस टू सेव कश्मीरी पंडित्स? आंसर तो सबको पता है वैसे, लेकिन चड्डी गैंग की क्रिएटिव टीम ने एक नई स्क्रिप्ट लिखी है, तो उसे भी एनालाइज कर लेते हैं बिफोर कि ये किसी और का ब्रेन वॉश करें। ये वीडियो लंबी होने वाली है क्योंकि इसने बहुत ही ज़्यादा ट्विस्टेड वे में इंटेलेक्चुअल डिसऑनेस्टी एंड नॉन क्रोनोलॉजिकल ऑर्डर में एक पजल बनाई है जानबूझ के। सो लेट्स सॉल्व दैट पजल और सॉल्व करके इनके मुंह पे मारे।
Some Sikh scholars emphasize Sikhism as an entirely independent revelation, born in its own spiritual vacuum without direct dependence on prior traditions. Others describe it as a beautiful amalgamation drawing from the devotional streams of Hinduism, Bhakti, and the monotheistic emphasis of Islam. And yes, certain voices within your own tradition have at times affirmed a deep oneness with Hindus, seeing no fundamental separation in essence.
सबसे पहले, no Sikh ever says that Sikh is the beautiful amalgamation of Islam and Hinduism. Notice the choice of vocab in this sentence. Beautiful. It is used to make listener feel positive about an alternate definition of Sikhi that contradicts Sikhi defined by Sikhs. सच को तमीज़ ही नहीं है बात करने की, झूठ को देखो कितना मीठा बोलता है। This is called epistemic dilution. This means diluting the definition of something, some idea or some ideology by equally accepting, giving importance and validation to alternative definitions. This is done to create confusion and weaken the real definition, which is of Sikhi in this case. ये सही है लेकिन वो भी सही है और वो भी सही है, तो इसका क्या मतलब हुआ कि कुछ भी 100% सही नहीं है, किसी को क्लैरिटी नहीं है कुछ भी। So no, all other definition of Sikhi are given by Sikhi deniers that include Islamic Dawa gang and IT cell Hindutva agents, not by Sikhs.
One of the most poignant examples that repeatedly surfaces in these discussions is the martyrdom of Guru Tegh Bahadur in 1675. Yet, precisely because it is a historical claim, it must be subjected to the same rigorous scrutiny as any other event from that era. To examine history honestly is to honor the truth-seeking spirit that both our traditions hold dear.
Keep a note of these words for now: rigorous scrutiny and truth-seeking spirit. We will rigorously scrutinize his truth-seeking spirit soon.
Here is the story most of us have heard. It is narrated with certainty, repeated with reverence, and passed down less as a historical proposition than as a moral lesson. In this account, 17th century Kashmir stands at the edge of catastrophe. Kashmiri Pandits, persecuted and threatened with forced conversion, are said to have crossed mountains and imperial frontiers to seek refuge with Guru Tegh Bahadur. He is then supposed to have challenged the Mughal emperor Aurangzeb to convert him to Islam or leave Kashmiri Pandits alone to practice their religion in peace. The Guru's execution is then framed as the ultimate act of sacrifice, one life given so that an entire community might endure. The Bhatwahis are perhaps the most crucial primary sources that speak of these events. These were scrolls maintained by Bhatts, hereditary genealogists and record keepers, who travelled with the Gurus. This record explicitly mentions a 16-member deputation of Kashmiri Pandits arriving at Anandpur Sahib, then Chak Nanaki, on May 25th, 1675. It names the leader of the delegation as Pandit Kirpa Ram Dutt, son of Arhuram, grandson of Narendas, from Matan, Srinagar. The record states that they shared their grievances with Guru Tegh Bahadur, who consoled them with kind words, invoking the blessings of Guru Nanak, the founder of the Sikh faith. That's it.
Notice, he didn't read the text but summarized it in his own words. This is exactly where the deception lies. He talked about Kashmiri Chronicles before but didn't give context of when they were written and what were their names. Now he talks about Bhatwahis but didn't tell you that it is explicitly written that Kashmiri Pandit delegation pleaded to Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji for protection. He said they shared their grievances but conveniently skipped the line in Wahis that explicitly states Kashmiri Pandits pleaded for protection. We will see what was happening to them and why they pleaded later using the same book Masir-e-Alamgiri that he cited himself. This is how these intellectual sounding people whitewash the history as per their agenda by doing minor changes in narratives. Wahis are hereditary genealogical records written by Bhatt Brahmins. Wahis or Pothis are also kept by Tirth Purohits at various locations like Haridwar for last 500 to 600 years that records the lineages and family history and the names and so on. It's a well established and recognized tradition in India. So does he reject Bhatwahis? He didn't say He didn't clearly say that he rejects it. He just say, that's it, after narrating what's recorded there. So there are three possibilities now. First, he accepts these records, which he does, but only initially. Later, he will give counter examples as food for thought against this meeting. Second option, he rejects Bhatt Wahis, but he doesn't say it explicitly because then he would have to deal with questions like on what basis he rejects a well-established and accepted tradition of the land. And the third possibility, he accepts what's written in the Wahis that a delegation of Kashmiri Pandits led by Kripa Ram did come to meet Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji and talked about persecution by Aurangzeb, and Guru Sahib did assure them with the blessings of House of Nanak that he doesn't believe that this sacrifice was given for Kashmiri Pandit. Whole video is a mix of all these three views. Quite tactful. सांप भी मर जाए और लाठी भी ना टूटे. Basically, this video script is written in such a way that if he can convince that the Kashmiri Pandits did not even make the journey in the first place and everything is fabricated by Sikhs, then that's the best outcome he hopes for. If not that, then at least if he can convince you that even though Kashmiri Pandits did make the journey, but Guru Sahib didn't sacrifice his life for Kashmiri Pandits, that's the next best outcome and the minimum that he wants to achieve. And all that without explicitly rejecting any scripture. That's the script in a nutshell. Whole video is the combination of multiple logical fallacies and rhetorical devices used in debates. Some of them are strategic ambiguity, because he accepts Bhatt Wahis meeting but then gives counter example against that meeting further in the video. Next is leading questions, where he asks series of questions that leads viewers towards a conclusion he actually wants without actually saying it himself explicitly. And the next is Mott and Bailey fallacy, where he accepts some things only to appear credible at first. Because first impression is really important in these type of contents where you're convincing the other side. But later, as he goes on, he leads people into opposite direction of what he just accepted. It will be a masterclass in intellectual dishonesty. Notice he did not point out any false information in the Bhatt Wahis. Remember, these Bhatt Wahis are the records that were not written as historical chronicle keeping a narrative in mind. IT cell tab nahi tha. Brahmins had these traditions to keep record all over India. Bhatt Wahis or Pothis written by Brahmins who used to note down the name and lineage just like the Tirth Purohit at Ganga Ghats is one of the strongest written evidence about Kashmiri Pandits making the journey to Guru Sahib and talking about persecution. आगे बढ़ते हैं.
When one turns towards Kashmir Pandits themselves, towards their collective memory and their political record, we find nothing on martyrdom. There exists no Kashmiri Pandit historiography, contemporary or near contemporary, that records such an intervention.
Classic move by manipulators. Use heavy words that people don't understand and conclude whatever you want. There exists no Kashmiri Pandit historiography. Let's look at the meaning of historiography first before we decide. Because clearly he didn't know it. It means how history is written, interpreted, and recorded over the time. It is the study of history itself. It does not mean written record only, like he is implying. Historiography examines the method, sources, and biases in the records. For example, if there is a lack of written record somewhere, historiographers or historiography will study why is it that. It also includes oral traditions. If there is a presence of a strong oral tradition for an event, then it can't be refuted solely on the basis of lack of a written record that describes it perfectly after 500 years. Oral tradition is one of the oldest method of information transfer. Remember this definition of historiography because we will see if this person actually applied this definition or just used this word to sound like an intellectual in front of idiots.
Kashmir, the land said to have been saved, does not remember being saved. That silence is not incidental. It is historiographically decisive.
He said there is no historiographical record of Kashmiri Pandits in Kashmir history about this event. Kashmir forgot. Really, very sentimental line, but is it really true? Let's analyze it. The traditional old Kashmiri chronicles recording traditions ended in early 1600s. Some of the most prominent non-Mughal chronicles of Kashmiri history are Rajat Tarangani, written in 1148 CE, about 500 plus years before the event. Then we have Jon Raja, written around 1450 CE, about 200 plus years before the event. Next, we have Shrivara, written in 1459 to 1486 CE, about 200 plus years before the event for which he is demanding a written record of. Then we have Prajabhatta and Shuka, both were written in early 16th century, about 200 years before the event for which again he is demanding a written record of. In late 1500s or early 1600s, Mughals had established their record-keeping tradition. Sanskrit was ousted. Persian became the language. Record-keeping got regulated and scrutinized under Mughal lens. The event happened in 1675. Remember that. Did he give you full context of these records? No. Kashmiri Pandits have a very strong, one of the strongest oral tradition of passing down the sacrifice story of Shri Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji to their generations. पीढ़ी दर पीढ़ी कश्मीरी पंडितों ने ऑनर किया है गुरु तेग बहादुर साहिब जी को थ्रू ओरल ट्रांसफर ऑफ दिस इवेंट. Any historian would know that most of the historical events are shared via oral traditions before they are written down. By the way, there is also no written record of Kashmiri Pandit scholars writing article against this story. Why? He didn't touch upon that. The argument of silence goes both ways, isn't it? Rather, the evidence which he didn't consider on purpose is contrary to what he claimed. Number 1. A History of Kashmir written by Prithvi Nath Kaul in chapter 16, Kashmir under Mughals, mentions this story, and not only that, Kashmiri Pandits have their own very personal version of this story, deep rooted in Kashmir's culture that not even Sikh sources recorded. Prithvi Nath Kaul notes down in his book that Mughals were persecuting Kashmiri Pandits and some pious men went to Amarnath to pray to Lord Shiva, and in the cave one of the Pandits had this vision or dream where Lord Shiva asked them to go seek refuge in Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji in this Kali Yuga. The same story comes again in the different book, A History of Kashmiri Pandits by Justice Jia Lal Kilam. He confirms the name of Kripa Ram as leader of delegation. He further says that after Hill Raja failed to defend Pandits from Mughal atrocities, the Kashmiri Pandits went to Amarnath for Lord Shiva's blessing, and the decision to go to Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji was divine guidance. The same story is confirmed by Gwasha Lal Kaul in his book Kashmir Then and Now, a historical survey. He ignored these books by Kashmiri Pandit scholars for obvious reason, and you know that now. This shows that Kashmiri Pandit scholars attempted to set the record straight by rewriting their own history, their own oral traditions, their own stories without Mughal censorship. Moreover, can he tell if Kashmir really forgot, then why does every other Kashmiri Pandit house have a photo of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji? Why do Kashmiri Pandits go to and look after Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji's Gurdwara in Kashmir generations after generation? Not only that, the head of delegation still has descendants today who honor this history and their sacred relation with Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji.
मेरे पूर्वज थे कृपाराम भट्ट दत्त, वो आए थे गुरु तेग बहादुर के पास. उसी जनेऊ की रक्षा के लिए उनसे कहा था कि हमें पीटा जा रहा है, मारा जा रहा है और हमें कन्वर्ट किया जा रहा है, हमारा धर्मांतरण हो रहा है. तो शीश गुरु तेग बहादुर जी ने हम लोगों के लिए दिया था, इसके ना भूलिए. तो
नहीं, वो ठीक है. मैं ये
कश्मीर इतना भूल चुका है कि विश्व कश्मीरी पंडित समाज पेज ट्रिब्यूट टू गुरु साहिब.
मेन हमारी जो हिंदू बरादरी है, जो आज इस पूरे एशिया में या वर्ल्ड में है, ये हमारी बरादरी आज सर्वाइव कर रही है. आर्थ जनरेशन ये बिकॉज ऑफ गुरु महाराज की, गुरु तेग बहादुर जी की कुर्बानी की वजह से, गुरु गोविंद सिंह की वजह से, और जो मार्ग गुरु नानक जी ने हमें दिया ह्यूमैनिटी को, उन्होंने किसी पर्टिकुलर रिलीजन के लिए नहीं दिया.
क्या भूले हैं भाई, वो क्या भूले हैं. This all is considered in deciding whether historiography exists or not. He later says in this video that this story comes into play in 1848 in Guru Bilas' book.
The narrative of martyrdom itself enters the tradition only in the 19th century, most clearly in the third edition of Gur Bilas Daswan, published in 1848 CE.
But note that the background of this story, the Pandits going to Hill Rajas and then going to Amarnath and then getting divine guidance by Lord Shiva, does not come in any scripture whatsoever. He didn't explain why. Sikh sources starts from the meeting and Guru Sahib's promise, not what happened before that. All this background of events about Amarnath Yatra for Lord Shiva's blessing and getting a divine vision comes from Kashmiri Pandit ancestors and their sources and from Kashmir itself, not from Sikhs or Sikh sources. If this story came from Sikh book, then how come this story's bigger version with so much more background came from Kashmir itself? सिखों ने पूरी कम्युनिटी का माइंड हैक कर लिया सीक्रेट ब्रेन वेव टेक्नोलॉजी यूज करके, और ये सब कहानी मान गए इन 19th सेंचुरी. ये कहना चाह रहा है वो. भाई क्यों मानेंगे वो इस बेतुकी कहानी पर अगर ऐसा हुआ ही नहीं है. जब तू अभी अपोज कर सकता है, वो तब नहीं कर सकते थे. He did not explain that as well. सिखों की सीक्रेट ब्रेन हैक टेक्नोलॉजी एक्सप्लेन नहीं करी इसने अभी तक. आपकी मूर्खता इसके प्रमाण है, आपके भोलेपन पर बेस्ड है इसके तर्क. So far we have Bhatt Wahis that explicitly records names and lineage and the meeting. That's first clue. And then we have oral traditions of Kashmiri Pandits where they also talk about this story in much more finer detail than Sikh records, with their very personal experience deep rooted in Kashmir's long Shaivism. So these two things actually act as a supporting evidence for each other's authenticity. That's how history is studied. Oral plus written tradition record that can corroborate each other to give a holistic perspective. especially if two same events is recorded by different cultures. You will not find a single book somewhere that will say everything explicitly in a way you demand 500 years later from the people you like. It's combination of various sources, methods and information transfer, cultural continuity and nuance of that time. So far, this looks like an insecure attempt by a far-right BJP IT cell Hindutva agent to convince Kashmiri Pandits that their forefathers have lied to them. This looks like an attempt to gather Hindus under the umbrella of Hindutva, which is a political force, and for that they need to reject anything that hurts their fragile supremacy claim and homogenize Hindus all over India. Basically, IT cell Hinduism. और इनमें से जितने भी कमेंट कर रहे हैं ना, और जिसने ये वीडियो बनाई है उसमें से एक भी कश्मीरी पंडित नहीं है। होता तो ऊपर जो मैंने हिस्ट्री और कल्चरल एस्पेक्ट बताया है वो उनको पता होता। Now, if you reject oral traditions, then can you explain how Hindus transferred their history without oral traditions? Lord Krishna came in Dwapar Yuga, but the Purans were written 700 to 1000 years ago. So how were these stories you believe in were passed down the generations? Orally. Then they were written down. How were Vedas passed down? Also orally before it was written down. So to summarize till now, in favor of Guru Tegh Bahadur's supreme sacrifice for Kashmiri Pandits, we have first Bhatwahis, written records by Brahmin that recorded the meeting of Kashmiri Pandit delegate and their persecution and Guru Sahib's assurance and Guru Sahib's execution. We have strong oral tradition of Kashmiri Pandits that support the entries in Bhatwahis and their own version of story with background deeply rooted in their own culture.
Moreover, the narrative does not add up. It remains a mystery as to how the execution of a Sikh Guru would prevent atrocities on the Brahmins of Kashmir.
The answer to this question is very simple actually. Whoever has done basic research on Mughal relationship with Sikhs can answer this, and those who get their script from IT cell will have lies and misinformation deliberately or due to ignorance. Mughals before Guru Gobind Singh Ji did not acknowledge and accepted Sikhs as a different religion generally. Sikhi gradually took its form in 200 years. If you open Jahangir Nama, he calls Guru Arjan Dev Ji a Hindu in his memoir. It's after Guru Gobind Singh Ji created Khalsa, Sikh identity got cemented and understood by Mughals due to continuous war with Sikhs. Also, the sacrifice of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji was meant to plant the fearless nature in everyone who was being oppressed by Mughals. It was to show them to stand up against injustice fearlessly, irrespective of the consequences, not to be a doormat. That was the purpose of sacrifice. So to say that how did a sacrifice of Sikh Guru will save all Kashmiri Pandits is completely missing the point of the sacrifice. It shows that giving your life for justice is worth it. And it did happen. It was to sow the fearlessness inside the hearts of men of that time. That's what happens when you get the script from IT cell, half-baked narratives and lack of understanding of the subject. I personally believe it's on purpose to radicalize Hindus, but I want to give benefit of doubt in this case. I think he should really follow his own advice on historiography and study how history is told and understood. Anyways, moving on. For Mughals at time of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, Sikhi was an uprising sect within Hinduism, not a significant threat with distinct identity like in Guru Gobind Singh Ji's time. We'll move to his next assertion.
And if it indeed did, was there a royal decree to that effect announced by Aurangzeb after ordering Tegh Bahadur's execution? According to the Masir-e-Alamgiri, Aurangzeb's official court chronicle and summarized by Jadunath Sarkar, Aurangzeb was absent from Delhi from June 1674 to March 1676.
Why no Aurangzeb order recorded? This is argument from silence. It's really ironical he talks about historiography, but in this one video he fails multiple times to analyze Sikh-Mughal relations before the Prakash of Khalsa by Guru Gobind Singh Ji. As I explained, Mughals failed to see Sikhi as distinct identity before Khalsa. Guru Sahib gained so much importance because of this increasing followers day by day. Masir-e-Alamgiri was written by Saki Mustaq Khan in 1710 from various Mughal records and sources that focuses on Aurangzeb's conquest. So whether execution of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji makes it into Aurangzeb's official record of reign written to glorify Aurangzeb largely depends upon motive of that writer as well. It's not uncommon to skip over the parts that glorify the enemy and show oneself in a bad light. IT cell 2 rupees historians really have no idea about historiography actually, or they are deceitful. Remember this book's name, Masir-e-Alamgiri. He himself cited it and we will use it later to debunk him.
Now, as Sikh and Kashmiri sources offer no incontrovertible proof for the Kashmiri Pandit angle to Guru Tegh Bahadur's execution, the historical method requires us to turn to Persian chronicles, the administrative, legal, and narrative backbone of the Mughal world.
Sikh and Kashmiri sources provide no proof. Bro, what? You literally said that's it to Bhatwahis that was recorded by Brahmins, and you hid the Kashmiri oral traditions from your viewers and the books as well. What do you exactly mean by sources then? This is also called asymmetrical authority. He rejects all the records. मरे और मुकरे का कोई इलाज नहीं होता. मैं तो ये भी नहीं मानूंगा, मैं तो वो भी नहीं मानूंगा, मैं तो कुछ भी सुनूंगा नहीं. He will not reject oral traditions of Vedas or Puranic stories though. I'm curious, who do far-right BJP IT cell Hindus go for credible evidence? Who do they trust without question? Remember in the beginning he said the words truth-seeking spirit and rigorous scrutiny. Far-right Hindutva agents didn't find spirit of truth in books written by Kashmiri Pandit scholars, didn't find spirit of truth in very personal and powerful, unique Kashmiri version of the story. So let's see who is the spirit of truth of these Sarkari Hindus on IT cell payroll after rigorous scrutiny.
It is here that the earliest surviving account of Guru Tegh Bahadur's arrest and execution appears. In the Siyar-ul-Mutahirin, completed in 1781 CE by Ghulam Hussain Khan Tabatabai Hassani.
You know, मैंने फेस मास्क और चश्मा पाया हुआ है, बट मैंने सही में चश्मे के अंदर अपनी आंखें ऊपर रोल करी हैं और फेस पाम करने का भी मन कर रहा है. सो लेडीज एंड जेंटलमैन, फॉर फार राइट सरकारी हिंदूज ऑन IT cell payroll आफ्टर रिगरस स्क्रूटनी, द स्पिरिट ऑफ ट्रूथ, ड्रम रोल प्लीज, आर मुगल्स, आर मुगल हिस्टोरियंस. वाह, तालियां. मुगल नैरेटिव इज द स्पिरिट ऑफ ट्रूथ टुडे. एक तो मुझे समझ नहीं आता ये सरकारी हिंदूज का, हिंदुत्व वाले जो अपने आप को मसीहा बोलते हैं सभी हिंदुओं का, जब मन करता है इजरायली को अपना बाप बना लेते हैं, जब मन करता है मुगलों को अपना बाप बना लेते हैं, और मुगलों से सिख गुरुओं पे नैरेटिव लेंगे हम. मैंने तो टॉन्टिंग वे में कहा था, फार राइट हिंदूवाद इसने तो सीरियसली ही ले लिया. ये करेंगे गुरु ग्रंथ साहिब जी के अर्थ, मुगलों से करवा लो फिर. चलो, अब इन्होंने मुगल दरबारियों को अपना बाप बना ही लिया है तो इसे लेके हमें चलना पड़ेगा. क्या ही कर सकते हैं एज अ सिख हम, पहले भी होता था आज भी हो रहा है. समझ नहीं आता मुझे भाई. फार राइट फॉर हिंदू इशूज बट फार लेफ्ट फॉर सिख इशूज, ये है निशानी सरकारी हिंदुओं की. दोगले कभी इधर होते हैं कभी उधर होते हैं, डिपेंडिंग ऑन द कॉन्टेक्स्ट. ऑल ट्रू हिंदूज एक्चुअली नो दिस. अर्लीस्ट सर्वाइविंग रिकॉर्ड्स 100 साल बाद बाय मुगल. अबे IT सेल के चोमू भट्टवाइस को भूल गया यार. ये गोलमाल का जॉनी लीवर तो नहीं है कि जो अपनी ही बात भूल जाता है थोड़ी देर बाद. एज आई सेड, खिचड़ी पकाई हुई है जानबूझ के. जो पीछे माना है उसे आगे रिजेक्ट भी करेगा बिना बोले. सी द डिसेप्शन हियर. ही रिजेक्ट Bhattwahis without actually saying it because then he has to explain why. So earliest surviving records for Guru Sahib's execution is Bhattwahis, not this book. Let me tell you the records before this Mughal stepdaddy of far right Hindutva agent wrote this book. Number 1, Bhattwahis written in 1675 by Bhatt Brahmins. Number 2, Bachitra Natak written by Guru Gobind Singh Ji, son of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji himself in 1690. Number 3, Persian record, Khulasat-ut-Twarikh written by Sujan Rai Bhandari in 1695, who was a clerk in Mughal Darbar. Number 4, Shri Gur Sobha written by Senapati in 1701, writes about this execution. Another Persian book, Muntakab-ul-Lubab written in 1722 by Khafi Khan records this execution as well. Remember, these Mughal records are still Mughal after all, so they are all anti-Guru Sahib in narrative. But still, they do mention the event, the execution, much before Siyar-ul-Mutahirin, like he's saying. So he is yapping and lying going forward. I can end this video here, but let's go ahead for fun. This Puneet Sahni 2.0 says, earliest surviving record of arrest and execution is in 1781 by some Mughal historian. Anyways, Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. पुनीत साहनी की तरह इसने भी झूठ पे ही अपना पूरा बनाया वीडियो.
Ghulam Hussain Khan was born around 1727 in Delhi, less than 50 years after the execution. He belonged to an aristocratic Shia family closely tied to Mughal officialdom. His kinship links to Alivardi Khan and his father's position as Bakshi to Zainuddin Ahmad Khan placed him within elite bureaucratic circles.
Okay, that's some random irrelevant nonsense to make listeners feel like he has done his research. आगे बढ़ते हैं.
This was not a marginal observer writing from hearsay. This was a historian embedded in the afterlife of Mughal governance, with access to courtly memory, administrative documents, and informed oral testimony.
ओए होए 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 होए, not a marginal observer writing from hearsay. मुगलों के लिए कंडीशनल प्रेम देख रहे हो ये IT सेल वाले हिंदुत्व एजेंट्स का. सिखों से नफरत इतना अंधा कर देती है कि मुगलों से भी प्रेम हो जाता है. टेम्परेरी. सिक्की भी कमाल की चीज़ है, नहीं? Basically, he is saying after rigorous scrutiny, IT cell has found Ghulam Hussain Khan's book Siyar-ul-Mutahirin, The Spirit of Truth. इसको आगे एनालाइज करेंगे अभी, don't worry.
The account Ghulam Hussain Khan offers is restrained. There is no reference to Kashmir, no mention of forced conversions, no religious ultimatum, no civilizational framing.
सबसे पहले तो इन फार राइट के दल्लों की अकल को सलाम. पहले सभी रेफरेंसेस को रिजेक्ट करो, ओरल ट्रेडिशंस को इग्नोर करो ताकि मुगलों की किताब तक पहुंचा जा सके जो बहुत बाद में लिखी गई है, 1781 इन दिस केस. उसके बाद उसी किताब पढ़ के जिसमें मुगलों ने अपने बारे में अच्छा लिखा है. Didn't mention oppression, didn't mention forced conversions, didn't mention religious ultimatum, didn't do civilizational framing. Basically अपने आप को एकदम मतलब टॉप का बढ़िया बताया, अपने आप को 5 स्टार दिया एज अ रूलर. वो पढ़ के सिखों को झूठा बोल दो. बेसिकली दिस इज हाउ इट गोज. अरे सरदार जी आप झूठे हो. क्यों भाई? ये देखो मुगलों की किताब में लिखा है कि आप झूठे हो. देखो ये रहा, आप झूठे ही हो. चप्पल कहाँ है मेरी? सीरियसली यार, इस लेवल पर गिर चुके हैं ये फार राइट एंटी सिख हिंदुत्व सपोर्टर्स इंटेलेक्चुअल 2026 के अंदर. अभी कोई लेफ्ट विंग का हिस्टोरियन या मुस्लिम मुगल रिकॉर्ड्स यूज करके औरंगजेब पर एक नैरेटिव चलाएगा तो तुरंत ही रिजेक्ट कर देंगे जब खुद पे आएगी. लेकिन एंटी सिख नैरेटिव के लिए ये मुगलों को अपना बाप बनाकर बैठे हैं यहाँ पर. फिर कहते हैं भाईचारा कहाँ जा रहा है? इसी वजह से कम हो रहा है भाईचारा, तुम्हारी इन डबल स्टैंडर्ड्स और हरकतों की वजह से, जिससे तुम बाज नहीं आ रहे आज भी. इन्हीं फार राइट हिंदुत्व का लॉजिक और वे ऑफ थिंकिंग बांग्लादेशी हिंदूज पर भी लगाते हैं. मे भी इनको अकल आए. बांग्लादेशी हिंदूज क्लेम they are being persecuted by their government, and this far right Hindutva burn the flag of motherland of those Hindus. Notice they burn the flag. इन्हें कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है फ्लैग बर्न करने से अगर इनको ऑपरेशन हो रहा है कहीं और. But now let's see the official statement of the leader of Bangladesh of that time, Yunus Khan.
I'm asking about whether is there law and order? Is enough being done to protect?
If there's a court, there's a law, there's a police station, they can go and complain, register their complaint. This is all way. You just don't go to a BBC correspondent to complain. You go to the police station to complain and see through whether the law is taking its course. We always insisted right from the day one, our relationship with India will be the best relationship ever, because our fate and India's fate is tied together. We cannot isolate from each other. So we are always encouraging everything to happen in the best possible way. But somehow there's a kind of cloud around it. On certain issues like fake news, this Islamist group taking over the country, Yunus is a terrorist who's taken over the country. Those kind of things happen.
He does not mention Hindu persecution, no mention of forced conversion, no mention of violence, no mention of Hindu-Muslim angle in the riots, no civilizational framing. And Yunus Khan is not a marginal leader with no credibility. He is a Nobel laureate in microeconomics. His microfinance solution brought millions in Bangladesh out of poverty, including so many Hindus. He raised the living standards of all Bangladeshis, and for that he even got the Nobel Prize. Hindus celebrate their festival with amazing show in Bangladesh and even in Pakistan. His comments don't show any Hindu hatred in Bangladesh government. His comments are even-handed towards everyone. Did you notice the similarity in the above two narratives? That's how narratives are run, in a carefully scripted way using selective observation. And unfortunately, these Sarkari Hindus have turned against Sikhs again, especially in the last 5-7 years. I bet not a single Hindu will accept Yunus Khan's narrative or Bangladesh government's narrative, even though everything I said is 100% true. That's how propaganda is done in a carefully scripted way against Sikhs, especially Sikhs. The purpose of this video is to radicalize Kashmiri Pandits and non-radical Hindus for political gains of IT cell Hindus. Once they ditch Guru Sahib, throw away Guru Sahib's photos from their houses, Kashmiri Pandits will be fully assimilated into Hindutva ideology. After this, they will establish that Kashmiri Pandits didn't used to eat meat and they started eating meat from a lie, just like they're trying to do with Guru Sahib's Shahadat now. Anyways, moving on.
According to the CR, Guru Tegh Bahadur had allied with Hafiz Adam, identified as a follower of Ahmad Sirhindi, and together they and their followers were involved in collecting tribute in parts of Punjab. As they directly challenged the empire's control over the region, both were arrested by Mughal authorities. Hafiz Adam was banished to present-day Afghanistan. Guru Tegh Bahadur was sent to Gwalior, where he was later executed for reasons the chronicle does not specify.
Note the line, it's very important, did not give reason for Guru Tegh Bahadur's execution in the book. Why? Father of far-right Hindutva, their spirit of truth with access to all the records, who was so accurate, not a marginal observer writing from hearsay, skipped the reason why Mughal executed the Sikh Guru. Remember, this book was written in 1781 when Sikhi was well established, unlike Masir-e-Alamgiri when Mughals didn't differentiate between Sikhs and Hindus much. Just the fact that Mughal historian with all the resources in the world skipped over the reason to execute Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib makes Bhatt Wahi's Kashmiri Pandits' own oral tradition claim even stronger. If the reason for Guru Sahib's execution was treason, traitor or crime like Mughal historians portrayed in their books, they would have not hide it. Skipping the reason shows that it would have painted Mughals in bad light. It would have shown light on Mughal policies of discrimination. It would have glorified Guru Sahib's supreme act of sacrifice further. That's why they skipped the reason. Again, historiography studies how history is told and by whom and what is written, what is not. It studies biases of writers too. This guy fails over and over again to actually apply the definition. Basically, he is saying because Mughals didn't show themselves as oppressor and Guru Sahib as a saint who stood against the oppression in their own records, therefore it didn't happen at all. Remember my Yunus Khan example. Even today, Mughal supporters generally don't accept that Aurangzeb persecuted Hindus. इसने तो ध्रुव राठी वाली बात ही कर दी. Indian government has never officially claimed that they sent spies in Pakistan. भाई कोई क्यों, कोई स्पेशली कोई सरकार क्यों अपने नैरेटिव में अपने अगेंस्ट लिखेगी? This story actually fits like a missing piece of puzzle on why Mughals were at good terms with Guru before Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji and what made them so hostile towards Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji. This was seen even before that, when Jahangir noted in Jahangirnama that some Hindus started following Guru Arjan Dev Ji and Guru Arjan was then executed. So this is not new for Mughals. Since now you have a general idea of Mughal understanding of Sikhi, it makes perfect sense why someone would come to Sikh gurus to ask for sanctuary and protection. He said how would sacrifice by Sikh Guru would protect the Kashmiri Pandits who came to Sikh Guru. Obviously because they came in Guru Sahib's protection. Remember, even though Mughals didn't see Sikhi as a separate religion at that time, Guru Sahib's father, Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji, fought battles with Mughals. And in those battles, Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji also took part. So Sikhs were sovereign at that point. Guru Har Rai, who was grandson of Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji and the Guru before Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, has a good relation with the Mughals. Mughals had some kind of mutual understanding with the Sikhs to maintain peace. So someone who is escaping persecution by Mughals coming into the sanctuary of Guru Sahib makes perfect sense. And it also explains why Guru Har Rai, the Guru before Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, has good relations with the Mughals compared to Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji. So Kashmiri Pandit came to Guru Sahib and asked for sanctuary, and Guru, being the Jagat Guru, gave them sanctuary, and that ruined the relationship. Mughals called Guru Sahib, asked him not to give sanctuary to Kashmiri Pandits, and Guru Sahib refused flatly. Then he was charged with treason, that this one that Sikhs give to the Guru, you know, the ones that we give in the Golak in Gurdwara, that was presented as extortion by Mughal historians. Guru Sahib was charged with treason, all his acts were seen as acts of defiance, and then he was executed. And that spoiled the relationship between Mughals and Sikhs. Everything falls into perspective if you see it from non-Mughal lenses.
What gives this account weight is not merely its priority in time, but its internal consistency. Ghulam Hussain Khan's treatment of Sikh history elsewhere in the CR is accurate and even-handed. He speaks of Guru Nanak with respect, records the succession of gurus correctly, and displays no animus towards Sikhism as a tradition. The Tegh Bahadur episode is narrated at the same level of detail as other political disturbances of the period. It neither swells into hagiography nor contracts into dismissal.
हाँ, अब आ जाते हैं even-handedness and non-biased treatment of Sikhi by this father of far-right Hindutva. This is what this Mughal, Ghulam Hussain Khan, writes about Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji in the same book this guy says is accurate and even-handed and not biased against Sikhs. He says Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji was plundering the city and terrorizing the people. Basically बोल रहा है गुरु साहब डाकू लुटेरे थे जो शहर में लोगों से लूटपाट कर रहे थे और शहर के लोगों को डरा धमका के दहशत फैला रहे थे. No religious bigotry. ये है इन फार राइट के दलों के सोर्सेज का सच व्हेन इट कम्स टू सिख्स. ये है इनका भाईचारा. नोटिस कितने प्यार से शुरुआत में सिखों से बात कर रहा था, टू अपीयर इंटेलेक्चुअल, क्रेडिबल एंड ब्रदरली, बट ऐसे मुगल हिस्टोरियंस को बाप बना के एंटी सिख नैरेटिव को मानने के लिए ब्रेन वॉश कर रहा है लोगों को. प्यार से तो लोग जहर भी पी लेते हैं. वही लॉजिक है यहाँ पर, और कुछ नहीं है इसमें. इनसे बेटर तो वो दुश्मनी है जो नफरत करे बिना किसी झूठी एक्टिंग के.
औरंगजेब ने तो संदेश ही एक इस प्रकार का एक उसका उद्देश्य ही था, किसी प्रकार से तिलक और जनियों को समाप्त करके सनातन धर्म को हमेशा के लिए समाप्त करो. इस्लामी करण के जिस बड़े अभियान को लेकर के आगे बढ़ा था, उसमें सबसे पहले चुनौती उसको किसी ने दी थी? गुरु तेग बहादुर जी महाराज ने दी.
हिंदू धर्म की रक्षा के काजे हुआ. कश्मीरी पंडितों ने जब उनके सामने उन पर जो बेइंतहा अत्याचार होते थे इसकी बात रखी, तब गुरु साहब ने निर्णय किया और अपना सर्वोच्च बलिदान यहीं सामने चांदनी चौक के सामने, जहां आज शीशगंज गुरुद्वारा विद्यमान है, वहां पर दिया।
गोविंद सिंह जी महाराज ने अपने पिता से कह दिया, तो पिताजी ने कहा कश्मीरी ब्राह्मणों से कि जाओ और औरंगजेब से कह दो, यदि तुमने तेग बहादुर को मुसलमान बना दिया तो सारा हिंदू समाज मुसलमान बन जाएगा।
इनके बाप वहां संतरी रंग पाके गुरु साहिब जी के लिए आंसू बहा रहे हैं, आंसू बहाने का पखंड कर रहे हैं, और ग्राउंड लेवल पर सिखों और गुरुओं के अगेंस्ट लोगों को मैनिपुलेट करने के लिए इन्हें छोड़ा हुआ है। दैट इज द हार्श ट्रूथ जिसे आज एक्सेप्ट करना पड़ेगा सभी प्राउड इंडियन सिखों को। मेरी तरह मैं खुद फार राइट बीजेपी सपोर्टर था 4 महीने पहले तक। खालिस्तान बहाना है, सिक्खी इनका असली निशाना है। द रीजन ऊपर बैठे ये सब दिखावा कर रहे हैं क्योंकि अभी लोग ब्रेन वॉश नहीं हुए हैं, अभी डायरेक्टली नहीं रिजेक्ट कर सकते सच को इस तरह, लेकिन ग्राउंड लेवल पर ऐसे बंदे छोड़ के काम शुरू हो चुका है ब्रेन वॉश करने का। जिस दिन लोग हो गए ब्रेन वॉश पूरी तरह से, ये गुरु साहब को या तो हिंदू घोषित कर देंगे और बोलेंगे हिंदुओं ने हिंदुओं को बचाया, या सेलिब्रेट करना ही बंद कर देंगे कि गुरु साहब ने ऐसा कुछ किया ही नहीं है। यही सच्चाई है इनकी। अभी नॉन बिगेटरी, इवन हैंडेडनेस और फेयरनेस की बात करी थी, अब एक्यूरेसी भी चेक कर लेते हैं इस बुक की। ये वो कहती है हाफिज एडम गुरु साहब का कंपेनियन था और जिसके साथ मिलकर गुरु तेग बहादुर जी लूटपाट दहशतगर्दी कर रहे थे। लेकिन मास्टर आलमगीरी, वही बुक जिसका रेफरेंस इसने दिया था, वो बताती है कि हाफिज आडम वॉज बैंड बाय शाहजहां एंड डाइड 30 years बिफोर गुरु तेग बहादुर जी। CR says Guru Sahib was executed in Gwalior, but all the evidences point to Delhi, Chandni Chowk. Why wasn't the Gurudwara built in Gwalior then? Minds of far-right Hinduwadis is like wasteland. Nothing grows there. They want everyone to believe that somehow Kashmiri Pandits got tricked by Sikhs into believing that an event happened that never actually happened, as if they are kids. And Kashmiri Pandits made their own in detail, very personal story about it as well. That's not even found outside of Kashmir, not even in Sikh sources. And then Sikhs got tricked into believing that their guru, whose death was witnessed by many, died in Delhi. सब mind act हो गए हैं for no reason at all, just because Ghulam Khan's narrative is different. ये है इनकी accuracy and even handedness towards Sikhs. Anyways, आगे बढ़ते हैं।
Records the succession of gurus correctly.
गुरुओं के 10 नाम जो बच्चे को पता थे वो सही से रिकॉर्ड कर लिए तो इनका accuracy टेस्ट भी पास हो गया। वाह, 10 गुरुओं के नाम पता है तुम्हें? हाँ पता है, ये लो अपनी हिस्ट्री डिग्री। ये इनका हाल है, ये इनका एक्यूरेसी टेस्ट है। एज आई सेड, साम दाम दंड भेद यूज करके सिखों के अगेंस्ट ब्रेन वॉश करना इनका मोटिव है, सच बताना इनका मोटिव है ही नहीं। सिक्खी ने ब्राह्मण सुप्रीमेसी को हमेशा से रिजेक्ट किया है और वो ही इनका सबसे बड़ा दुखने वाला पॉइंट है जिसकी वजह से सिक्खी रिजेक्ट भी करना चाहते हैं।
Importantly, the inclusion of an Islamic associate as Guru Tegh Bahadur's partner undermines any claim that the narrative was shaped by sectarian hostility.
अरे वाह, बट कॉलिंग गुरु साहिब डाकू, लुटेरा, दहशतगर्द, दहशत फैलाने वाला is not hostility according to him. At least when Islamists or Mughals hate us, they are honest about it. Unlike these far-right सरकारी Hindus on IT cell payroll, जिनके मुंह में राम राम है और बगल में छुरी है. By the way, that Islamic guy was a Shia Muslim. The whole world knows Sunnis and Shia didn't get along a lot of times. Sunnis have persecuted Shias throughout the time. He didn't tell you this. Obviously, how would he manipulate if he tells you the complete truth? So no, inclusion of a Shia as a negative character does not prove even-handedness by Sunni Muslim historians. Nalaiko, again, failed at applying historiography principles. ऐसे ही होगा हिस्ट्री एक प्रोपेगेंडा वाले चश्मे से पढ़ोगे तो। बाय द वे, अगर मुगल वर्जन और मुगल नैरेटिव्स पर इतना ही भरोसा है तो मुगल हिस्टोरियंस तो शिवाजी महाराज को इनसिग्निफिकेंट रिबल एंड डेजर्ट रैट रिकॉर्ड करते हैं। सो फार राइट के न्यू फादर्स के अकॉर्डिंग, नॉट मेरे, मैं तो बहुत रिस्पेक्ट करता हूँ शिवाजी महाराज की एज अ सिख, तुम्हारी ट्रूथ सीकिंग स्पिरिट, रिग्रेस स्क्रूटनी और मुगल रिकॉर्ड्स की ऑथेंटिसिटी जो तुमने ढूंढी है उसके अकॉर्डिंग शिवाजी वॉज अ इनसिग्निफिकेंट रिबल, नॉट अ हीरो, एंड वो एक डेजर्ट का एक चूहा था। अब पसंद नहीं आया ना अपने न्यू पप्पा का वर्जन? ये हाल होता है जब आप सच, ऑनेस्टी, भाईचारा की जगह इंटेलेक्चुअल डिसऑनेस्टी, अंधी नफरत और प्रोपोगेंडा स्टैब्लिश करने के लिए अपने ज़मीर को मार दो और उस लेंस से पढ़ो हिस्ट्री को। दूसरों के घर में आग लगाने के चक्कर में तुम्हारे खुद के घर में भी आग लगेगी।
The broader administrative context reinforces the plausibility of the CR. Since the time of Guru Arjan, Sikh gurus had institutionalized the Masand system to collect tithes from followers and from populations living within their zones of influence. After the death of the 8th Guru, disputes over succession arose between Ram Rai and Tegh Bahadur, both of whom sought Mughal recognition.
Notice the symbolism. He showed an AI image of a young Sikh boy who is meant to depict Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji losing his mind in anger, shouting and arguing for succession with someone else. That's how they plant the narrative in your head without actually saying it, in a very subtle way and calm voice. मुंह में राम राम बगल में छुरी कहावत इन फार राइट हिंदूज को देखकर ही किसी के दिमाग में आई होगी, मुझे लग रहा है। Where did this claim comes from? Did he give any sources of Guru Sahib arguing and fighting with someone else? Maybe a Mughal historian? Not even that. Remember, he rejects written records, oral traditions about Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji's sacrifice for Kashmiri Pandits, but presents this narrative, this story, without referring to source or any oral tradition. Rather, the record is contradictory to his claim if you know when and how Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji Sahib became Guru. And it's a very popular story too. No way he didn't hear about it before making this video. Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji Sahib was son of Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji. When time came for Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji to sit on Guru Gaddi, Guru Sahib refused to be the Guru. He wanted to quietly meditate upon Vaheguru's name. He was so busy in it. Then Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji made his grandson the next Guru, who was Guru Har Rai. ऐसे महान हस्ती थे गुरु तेग बहादुर, जिनका बस नाम सुन के लोगों के सर झुक जाते हैं। और ऐसे गुरु के बारे में ये सरकारी आईटी सेल वाले हिंदूज ऐसी घटिया कहानियां गढ़ रहे हैं मुगलों के नैरेटिव उठा के। Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji became Guru after his own grandson Guru Har Krishan Ji passed away. He was so absorbed in Bhakti. If he was so desperate to become Guru that he fought with someone else, he would have taken up the opportunity way earlier. एम है करेक्टर असैसिनेट करना गुरु साहिब का इधर, ताकि कश्मीरी हिंदुओं को हिंदुत्व की चादर में लपेटा जा सके, और उसके लिए हिंद की चादर को टारगेट भी करना जरूरी बन गया इनके लिए। एक तरफ छोटा फैंटा और इनके संतरी बाप गुरु तेग बहादुर जी के लिए आंसू बहा रहे हैं, इवेंट्स कर रहे हैं, और ग्राउंड लेवल पे ये उसी के अगेंस्ट काम कर रहे हैं।
During this interregnum, the tithe system likely collapsed. Once Tegh Bahadur consolidated his position, an attempt to revive revenue collection, especially in a volatile political environment, would have been historically unsurprising. The CR's description aligns seamlessly with this pattern.
मैंने एक पुरानी वीडियो में कहा था, इन फार राइट के दलों को इमेजिनरी कहानियां बहुत पसंद है, अपने लिए डिफरेंट। दूसरी बात, इन चड्डी गैंग वालों को इमेजिनरी सिनेरियोस बहुत पसंद है, क्योंकि इन्हें इमेजिनरी सिनेरियोस चाहिए वो आर्गुमेंट आपको प्रेजेंट करने के लिए जिसका रियलिटी से कोई लेना देना ही नहीं है। और वो बात आज फिर सच हो गई है। इसने बेसिकली मुगलों की तुच्छी सी एक किताब पढ़ी जिसमें गुरु साहब को डाकू, लटेरा, दहशत फैलाने वाला बोला गया, और फिर उसी से मिलती जुलती कहानी गढ़ दी। गुरु साहब को झगड़ा करते हुए दिखा दिया, और जो पैसों को ये नेगेटिव वे में दिखा रहा है ऑब्वियसली मुगलों किताब से, उसे 10 वंड कहते हैं। वही जिससे हरमिंदर साहिब जी का लंगर 24/7 चल रहा है, वही जिससे फ्री में दिल्ली में इलाज जैसे डायलिसिस हो रहे हैं इतने सालों से, वही जिससे फ्री में ऑक्सीजन सिलेंडर बट रहे थे कोरोना वायरस के टाइम में, वही जिससे फ्री में पुणे के अंदर एलपीजी गैस की कमी की वजह से गुरुद्वारे आए हैं स्टूडेंट्स ताकि भूखे पेट ना सोएं। ये है गुरुओं की सौगात, जिनके अगेंस्ट आज मुगल और आईटी सेल वाले हिंदूस एक हो रखे हैं। शर्म आनी चाहिए इन्हें। और इसी कहानी को यूज करके उस बुक को वैलिडेट भी कर रहे हैं। इसे कहते हैं सर्कुलर रीजनिंग। ये बुक क्यों क्रेडिबल है? क्योंकि ये कहानी भी ऐसा कह रही है। अच्छा, और ये कहानी क्यों क्रेडिबल है? क्योंकि देखो ये बुक भी कुछ ऐसे ही कह रही है। There is not even an oral tradition of the story that Guru Sahib was arguing, fighting, shouting, abusing someone else. No written record whatsoever. He rejects Kashmiri Pandits' oral tradition and Bhatt Wahis and all the other records, but accepts this story without asking a single question on its source. This is the double standards of these सरकारी हिंदुत्व एजेंट्स, जिन्हें 2014 के बाद नया एजेंडा मिल चुका है हिंदुओं को यूनाइट करने के लिए, किसी को विलन बना दो। इन लोगों का नारा होना चाहिए, मुगलों तुम सिखों से लड़ो, हम तुम्हारे चरणों में हैं। When the topic is of Sikhs.
Against this early, administratively grounded account stands a second, much later layer of Sikh narrative. The now canonical story of Tegh Bahadur as a defender of persecuted Kashmiri Hindus does not appear in early Sikh literature. Guru Kiyan Sakhiyan, a later text written by Sarup Singh Koshish in 1790, adds a layer of narrative to the Bhatt Wahis, mentioning a meeting where the Guru's young son, Gobind Rai, later Guru Gobind Singh, encouraged his father to make the supreme sacrifice to save the Pandits' faith. This is where the link between the Kashmiri Pandit meeting and the later execution first appears. The narrative of martyrdom itself enters the tradition only in the 19th century, most clearly in the 3rd edition of Gur Bilas Daswin, published in 1848 CE. The first edition of the text, authored by Sukha Singh in 1797, contains no such episode. Nearly a century and a half after the execution, the story acquires its moral architecture. Thus, the Kashmir-specific claim stands on flimsy evidence.
Now, canonical stories does not appear in Sikh literature. जब एम प्रोपेगेंडा फैलाना हो तो तिनके जैसा झूठ चाहिए किसी कंक्लूजन पे पहुंचने के लिए. Now let's see what we have from various sources that describe Kashmiri Pandit connection with Guru Sahib and Guru Sahib's execution in chronological order. So first, around 1675, Bhatt Wahis note down the meeting of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji and Kashmiri Pandits and makes an entry of who was in Kashmiri Pandits delegation, who was their leader and their names, makes entry of what they talked and what Guru Sahib assured. Then we have Kashmiri Pandits' own oral tradition of the story being passed generations after generation, naturally without any reasonable explanation for why they would accept this story if it was written by some Punjabi-speaking Sikh in Gurmukhi in some book. If the story came from some book in 19th century, like he claims, how come Kashmiri Pandits didn't oppose it or even clarify when they first heard of the story? He did not provide any explanation to that. Rather, as I explained above, Kashmiri Pandits have their own sacred story deeply rooted in cultural identity and the books that confirm that story, that even Sikhs can't comment upon due to its sacred nature. Next, we have physical structures like Gurdwara Seesganj, constructed at Chandni Chowk in 1783, that directly opposes Siyar-ul-Muhterin's claim that Guru Sahib was executed in Gwalior. Why would Sikhs dishonor their Guru without reason by not constructing a Gurdwara in Gwalior then? He didn't provide any explanation to that. Then we have Bachitra Natak by Guru Gobind Singh Ji himself, written in 1690, that clearly says Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji saved Janehu and Tilak. There is no reason to believe that Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji believed in Janehu and Tilak, because Gurus before Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji spoke of these outwardly appearances with indifference, and even Guru Gobind Singh Ji in Taf Prasad Savaiye, which also comes in the Dasam Granth, spoke of all these things as pakhand. Jin prem kyo tinhi prabhavayo. That's what Guru Sahib believes in. So why is this exception applied to only Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji randomly without any explanation? He did not even explain that. Connection of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji and Kashmiri Pandits was a cultural event, a civilizational event. Kashmiri Pandits didn't know how to read Gurmukhi. So according to him, a story written in 1848 in some book, written in some language Pandits didn't speak, somehow mind-hacked the whole community of Kashmiri Pandits, and their ancestors accepted this without opposing it. That's not how cultural continuity works. Communities do not change identity and their civilizational history overnight with a book without any political pressure or economic incentives or coercions, and none of that existed for Kashmiri Pandits to accept this story from a Sikh book written in a language they can't read. What do Kashmiri Pandits gain by claiming it? He thinks Kashmiri Pandits are like 5-year-old children and someone scammed their ancestors of their history so easily by writing a book. Sikhs lived in geographically different locations, spoke a different language. How did Sikhs manage to brainwash entire community without any centralized narrative control? And the most important question, as he will further talk about Guru Sahib's silence in Zafarnama about Guru Tegh Bahadur's execution, can he show some credible article in Kashmir's history where they oppose this story? They must have. Kashmiri Pandit scholars must have written articles explaining their point of view and objecting to this as soon as the story came out, right? Maybe silence and lack of absence of any written or oral opposition to this sacred relation is another testimony in support of this event. Rather, the article written by Kashmiri Pandits are totally opposite of what he said. Next point supporting Guru Sahib's sacred relation with Kashmiri Pandits and subsequent execution is, we have a Mughal historian who portrayed Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji as plunderer and terrorizing the city, conveniently skipping the reason for Guru Sahib's execution without explanation. He did not even explain that. Then we have various later Sikh scriptures that also note down this event. Now a good historian will take the note that Sikhs were at constant war with oppressors till 1995. First with Mughals, then British, and then this far-right Hindutva whose mother was Indira Gandhi before Kashmiri Pandit exodus. Sikhs were living in jungles, not writing records like Brahmins in Mughal era. There was a price for every Sikh head. Daily, hundreds of Sikhs were beheaded. Every historian knows that books, scholarly articles, are not written during the wars. The Sikh kingdom was established in 1801. Which brought stability and prosperity and all other things that living in jungles couldn't provide. Moreover, Harminder Sahib's library was burned in 1984 attack and thousands of original manuscripts were burned and some are still kept with government. Even then, we have managed to provide multiple records and evidences, oral traditions that support each other in different times, records that were written by different civilization, different type of people. Like a true historian will use all these in context to reach the conclusion instead of making a desperate attempt in using logical fallacies, half-baked narrative from a Mughal historian to counter the event. The only argument so far against the connection of Kashmiri Pandit with Guru Sahib is, as given by him, is Mughal historian didn't support this narrative that Guru Sahib did the supreme sacrifice against their discriminatory policies. His first two arguments about Sikhs and Kashmiri not having historiography were false.
At the time of Guru Tegh Bahadur's execution, Kashmir was governed by a Muslim governor whose principal deputy was Hindu. The valley's major phase of Islamization had occurred centuries earlier, during the reign of Sikandar Butshikan. Persian chronicles, regional histories, and Pandit records describe 17th century Kashmir as socially stratified and politically complex, but not as the site of sudden, empire-wide conversion campaigns in the 1670s.
No major persecution in 1700s. Bhai mere, last major exodus and persecution of Pandits happened in 1990 itself. शर्म तो कर ले ये क्लेम करने से पहले कि औरंगजेब मेजर परसिक्यूशन नहीं कर रहा था। मुगलों से प्रेम देख रहे हो ये आईटी सेल वाले हिंदूज का व्हेन टॉकिंग अबाउट सिख्स, कि इन्हें कश्मीरी पंडित्स की परसिक्यूशन ही दिखनी बंद हो गई औरंगजेब के टाइम में। सिक्खी भी क्या चीज़ है, सिखों से नफरत फैलाने के लिए फार लेफ्ट हिस्टोरियंस वाले तर्क देने पर उतरना पड़ता है। ये है इन सब की औकात एंड माइंडसेट। रिमेंबर ही गेव रेफरेंसेस ऑफ मासिर आलमगीर विच इज ऑफिशियल रिकॉर्ड ऑफ औरंगजेब्स रीन विच कंटेन्स वेरियस ऑर्डर्स गिवन बाय औरंगजेब। Same book which I used to debunk Hafiz Adam's story of Siyar ul-Mutareen. That book has recorded Aurangzeb's order in 1699. Remember 1699 is just 5 years gap from Guru Sahib's execution, and that order is to destroy all Hindu temples and schools. जी हाँ, in 1699 Aurangzeb ordered to destroy all Hindu temples and schools of Kashmiri Pandits. Within 5 years we have Kashmiri Pandit delegation making the journey to Punjab and Guru Sahib being executed. ऐसे ही नहीं इनके धर्म गुरु संतरी रंग पाके औरंगजेब के अगेंस्ट बोलते हैं।
औरंगजेब ने तो संदेश ही एक इस प्रकार का एक उसका उद्देश्य ही था, किसी प्रकार से तिलक और जनेऊ को समाप्त करके।
एविडेंस है तभी बोल रहे हैं। Notice his attempt to manipulate, he said in 1700s. It automatically pushes 1699 when Aurangzeb ordered destruction out of this time frame he selected. This is the level of deception in this video. It's not just an unintentional mistake. This is very carefully worded script with the sole purpose to push down the IT cell Hindu narrative and revisionism. शर्म आनी चाहिए सभी सो कॉल्ड हिंदुत्व ग्रुप्स को जो आज हिंदुओं के मसीहा खुद को बुलाते हैं, कि आज भी एक गुरु तेग बहादुर जी का सिख खड़ा होकर प्रूफ कर रहा है कि औरंगजेब परसिक्यूशन कर रहा था कश्मीरी पंडितों का इन अ रिस्पॉन्स टुवर्ड्स अ हिंदू क्लेमिंग कि औरंगजेब कोई मेजर परसिक्यूशन नहीं कर रहा था। डूब मरो शर्म से। इसलिए तुम्हें आईटी सेल हिंदूज या सरकारी हिंदूज बोलते हैं, क्योंकि एक सच्चा हिंदू कभी इतना नीचे नहीं गिरेगा प्रोपेगेंडा के लिए। बाप वहां संतरी रंग पाके आंसू बहा रहा है औरंगजेब के परसिक्यूशन के अगेंस्ट, और बेटों ने सिर्फ एंटी सिख होने के लिए अपने बाप ही बदल दिए।
The silence of Guru Gobind Singh is perhaps the most consequential datum. His Zafarnama, written directly to Aurangzeb, catalogues grievances with precision and rhetorical force. He speaks of betrayal, injustice, and the deaths of his own sons. Yet he does not mention his father's execution as an act of defending Kashmiri Hindus. Given the purpose and tone of the text, this omission cannot be dismissed as accidental.
अब बात कर लेते हैं जफरनामा की। Guru Gobind Singh's silence on Guru Tegh Bahadur's execution is perhaps the most convincing argument. Okay, silence of Kashmiri Pandits. Again, this story is not very convincing for him, but I don't know why this is. If you want to make an argument from silence, I personally don't believe in the argument. However, I can debunk this Zafarnama narrative with giving you some context about Zafarnama that he didn't give, obviously. And I can normalize his exaggeration of Guru Sahib complaining and writing about his sons in Zafarnama. His whole point of Zafarnama is based on that Guru Sahib Ji wrote in detail about his sons but skipped his father's execution. That's the whole point. Zafarnama was written right after Battle of Chamkaur. The Battle of Chamkaur wasn't supposed to happen, as Aurangzeb took oath on Quran that he will let Guru Sahib and his children and family pass without any kind of obstruction. But Aurangzeb broke his oath and decided to attack Guru Sahib in order to end Sikhi by killing his sons. They arrested 2 younger Sahibzade and 2 elder sons died fighting in the battle. And then Aurangzeb also executed the younger Sahibzade because they refused to give up Guru's Sikhi. His motive? To end Sikhi by ending Guru's lineage. What was the age of Sahibzade? 5 and 7 years old. So Aurangzeb executed a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. That's how much Aurangzeb was scared of Sikhi. Guru Sahib's mother Mata Gujri also died in Aurangzeb's captivity. Then Guru Sahib writes a letter. In this context, there comes only one line in Zafarnama where Guru Sahib is saying to Aurangzeb, "So what if you killed my 4 sons? Thousands are still alive." That's it. There is no complaining and explaining about deaths of 4 Sahibzade, no mourning, no nothing, like he tried to present it. ऐसे गुरुओं के बारे में ये IT सेल के हिंदू 2 रुपए लेके ऐसी घटिया कहानियां गढ़ रहे हैं. This is how deceptive Chatti gang can get when doing their anti-Sikh propaganda. That's why Sikh hates them. Obviously, he wouldn't show you the Zafarnama. He will also not tell his audience that Mata Gujri, Guru Sahib's mother, she also died with younger Sahibzade in Aurangzeb's captivity, but Zafarnama by Guru Sahib doesn't mention about his mother's death as well. Propaganda भी तो करना है. Zafarnama is highly contextual letter sent to Aurangzeb over his deceit and lowly act of executing 5 and 7-year-old children to end Sikhi. Hence, one reference telling Aurangzeb that Guru Sahib has thousands of sons still left. इनको शर्म आनी चाहिए यहाँ पर भी प्रोपेगेंडा करते हुए। फिर कहते हैं सिखों को प्रॉब्लम क्यों है?
The only other contemporaneous Sikh source to mention the execution is Bachatar Natak, an autobiographical work attributed to Guru Gobind Singh. It states, he protected the forehead mark and sacred thread, which marked a great event in Kali Yuga.
तो भड़वे क्यों रट लगा रखा था कि सिख लिटरेचर में नहीं है और 1848 में आई है ये कहानी? द रीजन इज, अगर हिस्ट्री को एक पजल की तरह नहीं बताएंगे, नहीं घुमाएंगे, तो एक मिनट में सब क्लियर हो जाएगा। क्रोनोलॉजिकली हम देखेंगे।
This statement does not establish any link with Kashmiri Pandits, as it may well be interpreted as Guru Tegh Bahadur sacrificing his life for his own dharma.
I have already debunked this above. Guru Gobind Singh Ji using the word Tilak and Janehu for Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji doesn't make sense at all. As Guru Gobind Singh Ji in Taf Prasad Savaiye in Dasam Granth talks against association of God with this worldly, outwardly symbolism.
This is exactly where things get interesting. The Bachatar Natak is a part of the Dasam Granth, a text that heavily references Hindu mythology and even contains an ode to the goddess Durga in her Chandi form. It is not difficult to see why the KP angle is useful to the separatist strain within modern Sikhism.
अब इन चड्डी गैंग वालों की एक्सपर्टीज श्री दसम ग्रंथ में भी हो गई है। उसी दसम ग्रंथ में गुरु साहिब आगे ये भी कहते हैं कि तै ही दुर्गा साज के दैतां का नाश कराया, तै ही दुर्गा साज के। तो इससे क्या समझ आता है? दुर्गा की तारीफ हो रही है क्योंकि किसी ने दुर्गा को सजा के अपनी शक्ति देके दैतों का नाश दुर्गा से कराया था। कौन है वो? अकाल पुरख। इसलिए दुर्गा को इज्जत दी जाती है सिक्खी में, बट भगवान नहीं माना जाता क्योंकि किसी ने उसको अपनी शक्ति से सजाया था। आ गए ना ये अपनी औकात पर, एज यूजुअल सिख आइडेंटिटी डिनायर्स। तभी मैंने इसे पुनीत सानी 2.0 कहा था, सच यही है। एंड सिंस ही लाइक्स मेकिंग आर्गुमेंट फ्रॉम साइलेंस, I'll debunk that Guru Sahib worshipped Devi from Zafarnama itself using the argument of silence which he presented first. Zafarnama broadly consists of 3 parts. The first part is about God and Ustat of God. If Guru Sahib actually worshipped Devi, he would have praised Devi in it. But there is no mention of Durga, no mention of any Devi or Devta, no Sanatani Sikh nonsense. Instead, Guru Sahib Ji calls himself breaker of idols in Zafarnama. जी हाँ, breaker of idols. आ गया मजा सुन के? इसलिए कहता हूँ मत टारगेट किया करो सिखों को इस तरह। जब हम जवाब देंगे तो लेने के देने भी पड़ जाएंगे, ज़्यादा कुछ एक्सपोज हो जाएगा, फिर बोलोगे हमारे हिंदू सेंटिमेंट्स तुम लोग हर्ट करते हो। नाउ लेट्स कंक्लूड एवरीथिंग क्विकली क्रोनोलॉजिकली। जो पजल इसने तोड़ मोड़ के आगे पीछे करके एक मूवी डायरेक्टर की तरह लिखी है, उसे क्रोनोलॉजिकल ऑर्डर में लगा के देखते हैं किसके पास ज़्यादा बेटर आर्गूमेंट है। तो सबसे पहले आता है ईयर 1669। Aurangzeb orders to destroy all temples and schools of non-Muslims as recorded in Aurangzeb's official reign records Masir-e-Alamgiri. फिर आता है ईयर 1675। But Brahmins who used to maintain Wahis or Pothis make an entry of Kashmiri Pandit delegation escaping the persecution and meeting Guru Sahib. Guru Sahib assures them of the blessing of House of Nanak. फिर आता है ईयर 1675 में गुरु साहब जी का एग्जीक्यूशन। Then year 1680 to 1690, Guru Gobind Singh Ji himself says Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji gave supreme sacrifice to save Janehu and Tilak. After that, we have strong Kashmiri Pandits oral tradition that confirms these entries. Remember my questions on how did whole Kashmiri Pandit community got mind hacked into believing something from book written in 1848, written in a language they couldn't read in a geographical location which was different from theirs? What's more believable to you? Secret technology of Sikhs which uses brainwave to hack someone's mind, or this? Now year 1695, so Jan Rai Bhandari, a clerk in Mughal Darbar, writes about Guru Sahib's execution in Khulasa Tarikh. Next, we have Shri Gur Sobha by Senapati, 1701, mentioning Guru Sahib's sacrifice to save Kashmiri Pandits. He said there is no Sikh or Persian literature that mentions Kashmiri Pandit connection before 1848, so that was a lie as well. An earliest Persian record that mentions execution of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji in 1781, C.R. al-Muhtarin, was also a lie said by him. Then we have Persian historian Muntakhab ul Lubab, who writes about Guru Sahib's execution in 1722. Remember, Sikhs were engaged in warfare against the state, living for months in jungle, and Mughals had all the control of the narrative. Now it's year 1781. We have this book C.R. al-Murtarin, written by Ghulam Khan, calling Guru Sahib plunderer and terrorizer. He hides the reason of Guru Sahib's execution. His whole argument is based on either Mughal narrative or from open-ended questions. We have Kashmiri Pandit scholars who wrote books about the same story with extra information about Kashmiri Pandit going to Amarnath and everything. His whole argument is based on either Mughal narrative or from open-ended questions like, why would Sikh Guru sacrifice, save Kashmiri Pandits? Why Guru Gobind Singh Sahib did not mention his father's execution in Zafarnama? And why would Kashmiri Pandits make this journey when they were not being persecuted much by Aurangzeb, which I have already answered. ये है चड्डी गैंग के 2 टके के इन्फ्लुएंसर्स की हिस्ट्री क्लास। दे यूज मुगल नैरेटिव्स, मुगल सोर्सेस, मुगल फ्रेमिंग टू अपोज सिख्स।